Alltså, spela med mig bara ifall du inte dödar. Du får inte döda mig, okej?
Hallå, vad satte ni in?
Jag satte in FFA Boxfight and Zone Wars.
Du kickar dig eller dödar mig.
Exakt.
Punch cups and roses. You got your me from.
Hallå, jag och Victor, vi är samma
Alltså,
pros. Vi har
ser du
samma
det?
så här, så.
Hallå, ser du? Elliot.
Jag vet inte, jag sa du var typ 62.
Åh nej, han är jättebra på boxfight, fuck.
Stopp.
Oh, hell no.
Alltså
Nej.
chilla lite. Jag vill inte
Det är
dö.
svinsvett.
Jag vill inte dö, chilla lite.
På konsol, i sådana fall är du den bättra
det är
konsolen.
inte konsol.
Riktigt.
Bra konsol.
Nej,
Oh my
typ.
god.
Hans edit är ju liksom...
Nej men sluta. Sluta. Sluta, jag kickar dig, jag lovar.
Sluta mannen alltså.
Du är säker.
Sluta!
Sluta.
Jag tror Erik vinner.
Jag vet att Erik vinner.
Oh shit.
Fast Hugo är inte heller så dålig, men jag tror ändå han vinner för han har dator och datorplayer. Så coola.
Ja.
Kom då Hugo. Kom då.
Nej, jag vågar inte komma.
Erik han slakta hugga lava.
Fuck Hugo. Sweaty.
Men hur minns du mig?
Jag missar.
Ja,
Ja.
jag vet inte.
Ja. Jag vet,
Ditt
jag
namn är lite såhär, det sticker ut rätt mycket.
Vems?
Ditt.
Oh shit.
Spänst Kid, ja.
Nej, men-
Jag kommer alltid ihåg att... För jag kallar alltid dig Spänst Kid. Jag kommer ihåg det.
Ja, det är typ alla som gör det. Hej svensk. Vad är det då?
Spänst Kid, vad gör du för något?
Det kan vara så...
Men alltså alla säger fel också. Det är det spets.
Nej, det är han, det är Erik. 100% Erik.
Vad?
Jag kan inte bygga. Sådär.
Fan, jag suger.
Tina, jag är redan inne på spel. Det är inte bra, Kalle. Det är bajs.
Men!
Alltså sluta. Sluta.
Third party.
Nerd! You nerd!
Hallå Elliot, den matchen vi
You
körde.
nerd! Nerd! Fuck!
Elliot,
Ja.
den matchen vi körde. Vi kom tvåa och hans sista, det var 2 mot mig och hans sista hade 22 HP.
Nej. Alltså ifall jag skulle ha varit kvar, då skulle vi få vinna.
Ja.
Ja. Så vi pickar också. Oj jäklar. Så det är pass överallt på mig.
Ja, han pushar mig liksom.
Han pushar alla samtidigt.
Ja.
Ja eller?
Nej.
Men Erik. Erik där pro.
Fan, sweet tryhard.
Åh, shit.
Jäklar, nu är det så bra.
Sweat tryhard.
Åh, jävlar!
Han är topp.
Jo, det var
topp.
det. Den har väl.
Jag kan vara 120 innan. Men Victor, det är min kill.
Ivo!
Nej,
Fan, ta dig!
Jag är legend.
Jag
Jag
tror
hade
det
tagit fram han.
Nej, jag vinner. Oh my god, jag vinner.
Ta slut för 20. Eller Elliot.
August.
Han bara ser att han har
Hör ni mig bra?
lite tops.
Okej Hugo, nu kommer jag gå för dig direkt.
Mig?
Ja.
Ja, samma mot mig. Varför Anakin?
What Anakin could have saved the galaxy, but you chose to go the wrong path.
Jag gillar inte folk som bygger högt.
High ground.
Och bara
Au, där.
han är överlevd.
No one knows where I am.
Alltså,
Jag sweat tryhard.
Han är lite sådär. Hur många timmar spelar du varje dag?
3.
Så att du spelar 3 timmar varje dag.
Ja.
Och sen så spelar han hela tid, varje dag också, så det kanske inte är så konstigt.
3 timmar?
Men du gör det inte. Då är det liksom så här
Hur
ursäktat
många
att han är
timmar
så
har
bra.
han per vecka? Han har 18, han har 21 timmar.
Det är nästan
Men på helgerna är det lite 4 lutar det mer åt.
Alltså Hugo, chilla lite snälla.
Nej. Han måste ju
Oh, är det Spänst Kid som är på mig?
Han är uppe.
Oh, Spänst Kid, lägg ner. Du kommer att bli slaktad.
Det är inte Spänskid.
Ja.
Åh jäklar, vad var det?
Jag är ett hopp när det kommer pickaxen. Bokstavligen.
Nej, ta dig i röven!
Träff på dig. Jag kom in en jättebra träff på...
Ja, du träffar mig ashårt.
jag fick det.
Men Hugo, spelar du fortfarande med han här snubben som du alltid spelar med innan, han från Stockholm?
Nej.
Men det som skulle se som visste vad rullade var.
Men Hugo, kom du ihåg Sweda Babe? Kom du ihåg Sweda Babe?
Just det.
Hon hade typ en son som du spelade. Alltså det var, jag tyckte verkligen det var fett weird att du spelade med en 21-årig kvinna från Stockholm.
21. Vad är
Hon
det?
var väl typ 21.
Nej. 30 då.
Ja, det är ännu mer weird. Tänk
Det
efter.
sker det ifall jag dödar dig.
Kom här.
Shit on. Hugo, skjut inte ner!
Han är inte ensam. Men den här förbaskade stormen kommer ju en gång
Nej, men alltså,
På baskat!
men jag hatar den här. Får man spana bredvid varandra?
Jag är alltså så 1 centimeter sen och så ska
Kolla.
Jag skicka nu. Jag har sänkt mitt sätt.
Men alla Hugo, varför kan den här pickaxen idag kosta 800 och den
Ja.
Hugo, chilla
Sa du?
lite.
Ja, okej. Ja, det var just det.
Fan.
Jag hör hörlurar på mig.
Men alla Hugo, hur kan den kosta 800 pickaxen om den är blå?
För att gröna pickaxen...
Nej! Hur fucking låg var du?
Så de har ändrats. Ja, det är dansat.
Nej, den här ska jag vara...
Leif.
Who will win? I will win.
Hugo, nu kommer jag gå för dig direkt.
Vad är det? Säkert den som bygger sten, Erik, eller?
Nej, jag dödar den som bygger i sten.
Snälla, det är inte kul.
Vänta, min sämst. Den är lite... Så där skjuter från alla håll. Så bara...
Hugo, lägg av! Tack!
Det var ett HP.
Jag är fan ett HP!
Dirkland!
Picka. Nej, han har ätit
Han har 41 sprutan. 41 gånger sen var han. Okej, 81.
Skjuta bara med full. Det får man ta med den andra.
Snälla gud! Ta dig i röven! Fan.
Det är inte den enda dansen som dansar.
Nu ska jag göra min speciella taktik.
4 danser. Mattias i detta, han bygger alltid upp på Max Hyper. Så är där och så antingen dör de för
Snälla, fortsätt mig.
de aldrig med.
Jag kommer liva. Snälla, kan ni döda mig? Bara lägg av.
Hur kunde jag missa? Alltså den var ju huvudhöjd och jag sköt
Hugo, skjut inte ner. Skjut inte ner.
Jag skjuter inte.
Nej, bra.
Han skjuter bara upp.
Direkt.
Jag faktiskt...
Nej fan, jag filar mina enheter.
Om jag en först av alla, då tycker jag vi ska köra squad
Victor, du
istället.
vet ju varenda gång när jag går först.
Okej, eller så kör vi någon annan karta.
Jo tack.
Ja, och då är man 2 mot 2 eller något sånt där skit som man kan bli carrier kanske.
Jaja.
Jag vet.
Jag var skit mot Hugo och Victor.
Nej, det borde vara 3 mot...
Shit on!
Okej.
Nej!
Hugo, jag och Victor mot...
Min handbolls...
Det borde
Och
då...
det var 2 HP! Tony!
Nej, det var
Jag ska ta...
Jag gillar, jag kör 180 FPS nu.
Sen...
Vad är det där för något?
Alltså jag är jätterädd att någon av er ska beama mig när jag fightar Hugo. Hugo. Nej, killstilen finns där alltså.
Victor,
Ja, kan
det är
jag
vi två mot varandra.
Hugo, du var fan 1 HP.
Nej, jag dödade han.
Vänta Hugo, hur mycket kills har, hur många kills har du?
12 kills, jag har 8.
Okej, jag har mest kills då.
Ja, konstigt.
12.
Så varför är det inte? Bland nu när ni båda späckar mig, nu kan jag inte se på mitt coola gameplay än.
Ja.
Alltså jag hatar, jag har inga bulls här.
Jag kan inte edita.
Och just det, jag livestreamar allt detta.
Ja.
Jag skäms.
Jag har inga bulls här.
Jag kan inte edita.
Och just det, jag livestreamar allt detta.
Jag vill inte höra. Jag vill inte
Try to
höra
note
det.
10.
Nu kommer jag cranka hit.
Hon är längst ner.
Ej. Pugiorno med donna verso tjocka på börnanen.
Jag kunde inte skjuta.
Om ni vill se på aim sist, kolla på mig.
You're 5 years old, motherfucker.
Brö. Bing!
Mot mig. Samtidigt.
Ja, då blir du lite rädd va?
Sir, yes sir.
Jag ska döda dig.
Okay, go back to hub.
Alla ni suger, jag måste gå. Jag släpper inte bara. Hej då.
Nu går det bra. Så.
Okej, vi kör.
Hej då, jag måste gå. Jag ska gå och duscha.
Okej, hej då Hugo.
Vi ses imorgon, Erik.
Ja, det gör vi.
Ja.
Och vi ses på tisdag. Elliot.
Ja. Vi är ju lackerar. Hej då.
Hej då.
2 mot mig, på riktigt.
Du chillar, nu chillar vi. Och ni är så låga alltså.
Chilla lite här du också. Men lägg av. Kan vi spela något annat?
Why should we spend money on NASA when we already have so many problems here on Earth? If somebody asked you this question, how would you answer? It's been nearly 5 years since I left, but I came back to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory today to help answer this tough question. But before I even get to the 5 reasons I think we should spend money on NASA, I need to clear one thing up. What percentage of the US budget do you think goes to NASA? According to polls, most Americans think it's 20%. So it should come as no surprise that 1 in 4 Americans think that NASA's budget should be reduced.
Wow, so, so,
The
so.
total budget represents $1 or 100
Ay, ay, ay.
The truth is, NASA gets less than 1/2 of 1 penny. For comparison, 16% goes to the military, and 60% goes to social programs like Social Security, unemployment, Medicare, and healthcare. Okay, so with that as our foundation, let me give you 5 incredible things we get in return for that 0.5%, or less than $9 a year for most Americans. Just like some might ask, why should we spend time exploring space when we have so many problems here on Earth? Some of our ancestors probably asked, why should we waste time trying to figure out agriculture when we have so much work to do hunting and gathering? Or, why should we spend so much time messing around in boats when we have so many issues here on the land? And the answer to all 3 of these questions is the same. Reaching for new heights often creates new solutions and opportunities for people back on the ground. And I have some personal experience with this concept. As most of you guys know by now, I spent 7 of my 9 years here at NASA working on the Curiosity rover. In fact, some of my hardware is still working like a champ on the top deck of the rover, albeit a little dirtier since I touched it last. But for my last 2 years here, I worked on a much lesser known project called SMAP, and in some ways, I'm more proud of what it represents, because SMAP is a super complex Earth orbiting satellite. Here's how it works. Once it's in orbit, the antenna boom is deployed, and then this 20-foot gold mesh reflector origamis out like one of those Hoverman sphere toys. And then the whole thing starts freaking spinning at 15 RPM. And it's using a radiometer that can see through the clouds to measure the soil moisture levels on Earth. This is important because soil moisture is one of the key vital signs of the planet. By measuring the
Vi kör
moisture
lite
of the
till.
soil, it allows you to predict droughts, monitor floods, and even predict crop yields for a given year. And because the antenna spins around like that, you're able to measure all the soil on Earth every 2 to 3 days. So I left before it actually launched in 2015. So the reason I am here today is to follow up with some SMAP research scientists to see how things turned out.
I've been to many countries in Africa. People know about SMAP, and the national government of those countries are trying to use it, especially for
What?
especially for crop monitoring. So NASA have a data access policy.
Oh, så smooth 200.
See major cereal crop on the earth: wheat, rice, and corn. We can forecast these 3 major crops. So 70-80% of forecast you can do with the crop yield of the whole world.
What Narendra is saying here is remarkable to me, and it sums up my first point perfectly. SMAP cost $900 million. Africa is the continent with the most extreme poverty today. I did the math, and for $900 million, you could feed all of Africa for less than a day. But instead, we invested in research and technology, which empowers them to better help themselves, increasing the amount of food they can make on their own for decades, as opposed to a one-time fleeting handout. Of the 37 missions
I'm getting
currently
out of the
running
back.
JPL, I think it's so cool that about half are studying and helping Earth just like SMAP. This is a fancy way of saying we should be doing everything within our power.
Varför är du inte död än?
Something catastrophically bad happens to us. Hollywood got this right when they said that a large asteroid impact would be really bad news. The chances of this happening are small, but the potential consequences are so large.
Jag vet.
These guys, it makes sense to take it seriously. NASA has already put an asteroid early warning detection system in place, and in October 2022, for the first time ever, they will test ramming a spacecraft into an asteroid to see if you can deflect it off course with a mission called DART. But perhaps an even bigger threat to humans are humans. One of the goals of all of the rovers that we sent to Mars is to gather data on what it would take for humans to live there. Establishing a permanent human outpost on Mars would serve sort of like a backup hard drive for your computer in case something catastrophically bad happened here on Earth.
Alltså, hallå du.
America's first satellite was built here at JPL, and now satellites
Yeah.
make it so we can get GPS driving directions on our phone or get TV beamed down to us from space,
Ja, men
or
jag
predict
tror...
the path of
Nej,
hurricanes with
jag
much
lämnar.
greater accuracy. The word pixel and the concept of the
Jag kör
first digital
squad.
camera was also invented at JPL in the 1960s when an engineer was trying to solve how to
Ja.
planets and send them back to Earth. In fact, there are nearly 2,000 NASA technology spin-offs. We don't know what we don't know. And so expecting NASA to justify its funding by predicting all the amazing things it will discover would be like expecting Christopher Columbus when he was lobbying Queen Isabella for ships to predict the polio vaccine or Netflix. Of the 18 billion that NASA gets, it's not like they're just putting that money on a rocket and launching it into space. The majority of that money goes towards the salaries of tens of thousands of some of America's most skilled workers. And one of the counter arguments here is, yeah, but why do we need the government to fund these programs? Why not let private companies do the innovating? Private space companies like SpaceX or Blue Origin are awesome, and they play in
Turned off the artificial gravity everywhere.
It's quantum entanglement between quantum states of ultra molecules in your brains. Do you guys just put the word quantum in front of everything?
I gotta say, we do put the word quantum in front of everything. Hi, I'm Jim Kikelius.
Yeah.
I'm a physics professor at the University of Minnesota and the author of The Physics of Superheroes.
Alltså vilken division hade vi, Erik?
Jag är hälften på division 7.
Vi tappade typ 50 poäng i början. 80.
Vi drar... Ska vi dra retail eller?
Och nej, jag tappade ingen. Jag tappade ingen. Ja, vi drar retail.
Jag tappar 40 poäng. Nu har jag exakt 4800.
Med massa tävlingar och sånt skit.
Jag är inte champion än. Jag kan vara med i cuper men inte de största. Som... Nej. Absolut inte.
Absolut, jo.
Kommer göra det lätt.
3 år för liten.
Det är 3 tips gör varje dag så tror jag du kommer att...
Ja, men alltså man måste vara 13 för att vinna pengar alltså.
Sitter i liksom.
Hur gammal är du då?
Var 11.
Är du 08 eller 09?
Det är 09.
Gang liksom.
Mobba mig inte. Jag får fett dåligt dropp. Drar ni blåa eller? Båda dropp. Ett helt team landar blåa tror jag.
Blå.
Ja, du...
Jag kommer på det.
Elliot, jag har det. Jag landar.
Hoppa ner.
Vad fan, står ni där och äter cabinets?
Ja, vi sticker.
Alltså jag är ett år för
Alla som har vapen.
Jag tar en först ut. Alla. Jag försöker gömma mig här lite.
Ja, nu måste du som dödar dem här.
Okej, han är
Du
shakedown.
har hög träck.
Det är lugnt att de shakedownar. Är de på väg?
Nej, inte än. De står väldigt material.
Där är han.
Åh jävlar, båda sitter där.
Och han har mest tur.
Okej, jag kan inte pika.
Alltså aimbot.
Det är som fire.
Du är helt sjuk. Det drar båda två.
Och det är 3 ju för fan.
Han är ett år yngre och bättre än oss.
Ja, men han är inte spel 7 år längre än oss.
Oh fuck, en sneakar upp på mig.
Alltså de är inte så det fixar de. Det är de mest men du är mycket bättre.
Ja.
Åh fan, han är 1 alltså.
Alltså, tycker inte det är jobbigt att spela på?
Ja, Anita. Hur kan du släppa andra?
I Getting or...
Åh, du skojar, jag är död.
Jävlar, det är liv. Jo,
tjänar massa.
Jävla 7 poäng igen. Alltså du får upp mitt i arena 2.
Ja, du har fått med arena 2 och 2 poäng till.
Om några poäng till så jag.
Men åh, du skojar, kan jag inte ens få fixa mitt fucking inventory.
Jag vill lägga av de här träffarna.
Fan. Alltså jag får damm. 21 poäng. Okej, så jag gick minus med 19.
Och hur måste carrya dig lite mer?
Hur mycket kunde du?
Nej, vi kör en till. Det är ganska bra.
That's a scene from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And as they're making their jailbreak, Rocket turns off the artificial gravity in the space station so that everyone else floats and is unable to get their bearings, and they make their escape. Say you're in an elevator, and in the worst case scenario, the cables break and you start free falling. You're no longer feeling the effects of gravity. It's as if you're weightless. You could start doing magic tricks to the other people in the elevator. Say, hey, look at this pipe, and let go of the pipe and it would just float there. Because it's falling, you're falling all at the same rate. But if you're already standing on the floor, you'd stay standing on the floor. However, anyone who was walking, at the moment they were walking, they were pressing their feet down on the ground and then lifting their feet up. And at that moment, if the gravity was turned off, they would have launched themselves up. And without gravity to slow their ascent, they would keep rising in that way. So the people who were stationary and started to float up, not so much. Anyone who was walking would indeed start to flow up. I'm not quite sure how the artificial gravity is being generated in the space station, and the whole notion of artificial gravity that can be turned on and off at will in generalized locations in the space station.
Var landar vi?
Bit too far. Talking raccoons, that part's okay.
Du får bestämma. Du tror alltså.
Vill du ha sweaty sands?
I'm dying.
Är vi svettiga så landar vi.
So Thanos has just acquired the Space Infinity Stone. And as soon as he has this, he's able to stop Loki's dagger thrust in midair.
I'm dying. You should choose your words more carefully.
Well, there's actually some real physics behind this. Back in the beginning of the 20th century, Emmy Noether was able to show a deep, intimate connection between space and momentum. Control
Va?
from the space stone not only allows you to teleport, but apparently also gives you command over momentum. Loki's dagger thrust is arrested, and all of the momentum is stopped.
Jo, men alla går sweaty. Alla går sweaty. Eller nej? Okej.
It's coming from the space stone.
Nej.
The momentum of his thrust. It's worth noting that in Captain
Oh, du fick väldigt snygg glide.
which was embedded
Du kan ta en bil, du kan ta en bil.
is the only Infinity Stone that was actually weaponized by Hydra and used to create force beams, thereby showing that there is indeed a connection between space and momentum. The first Iron Man movie, 2008, one that started the whole Marvel universe. I love it. Tony Stark, the superhero as engineer, and the engineer as superhero. When he built his first suit in a cave out of scraps, it was made of iron and was very heavy. About 150 pounds, just counting the iron. Not counting
Jag går in mitt.
Then he developed the Mark II, which was titanium. Titanium is lighter than iron, strong. And then in order
Kom till mig. Eller vänta, vem är det, Folkus?
Men den är har
he used a gold titanium alloy.
Vi pushar han ensam.
Ska jag följa med eller stannar jag?
Kille. Jag tror han är 2. Han är jättebra. Alltså
Han är där ute. Han kommer upp där. Akta Elliot.
Gold titanium alloys, they tend to be very brittle. They're used in dental applications more than anything else. So unless he's fighting, crime boss Gingivitis, I don't think
Bra, gå finish direkt.
gold titanium alloy. So much of the technology, except for the arc reactor, are things that we
Jag är vid mitt hus, jag är vid mitt hus.
right now. We have exoskeletons.
Kom till mig, kom till mig, kom till mig, kom till mig.
We have jet boots.
Jag stänger ut dem. Jag
The
tar mig.
one thing we don't have is a power.
Kom till mig, kom till mig, kom till mig.
He has an arc reactor. It's about the size of a hockey puck. It puts out the power of 3 nuclear power plants. If we knew how to do that, we wouldn't need superheroes. Because otherwise you'd have an Iron Man suit, but you'd have to drag a long extension cord behind you in order to have enough power for the
Tack,
suit.
tack.
One thing that's realistic in this is that we never
Grand escape, grand escape. Hoppa in, hoppa in. Grand escape.
boots or
Du, 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 du.
you can press a button, give a voice command, and have
Skjut dem, skjut dem, skjut dem, skjut dem.
cybernetic helmet
It's a grab! Ah!
waves and sends the
Ow!
to the suit. This is real. Scientists in
Ja, jag kommer dö.
University of Minnesota and at
Nej, vi klarar det, vi klarar det.
universities and institutions around the world are developing cybernetic helmets that pick up
Bra.
very weak radio waves that
Följer de
are
efter?
generated
Kan du kolla om jag följer?
amplifying them, sending
Jag får den här kistan, jag får den här kistan, jag får den här kistan.
device. They're trying to develop prosthetics and treat paralysis. But if you had asked me as a kid when I was reading Iron Man comics, which part in the 21st century would be the closest to reality, the last thing I would have said was the cybernetic helmet.
Why do you pick on someone your own size?
Ska vi försöka
Ant-Man
ta...
shrank down to the size of an ant,
Nej, hinner inte det.
even much smaller. When Ant-Man shrinks, he's also able to control his mass, and he shrinks at constant density, so he's very lightweight. When he rides on an ant, for example, he doesn't smush the ant, but when he wants to punch Yellow Jacket, he's able to increase his mass, so there's more force, more momentum behind
Jag kollar
his
ut på
punch.
Fortnite-video.
How does he do it?
No.
In the comics and in the movie, via PEM particles that were discovered by Hank Pym. If they had
Science.
just given a
Det är någon snubbe typ som så här, han var så här professor och så här ratade han olika scener som makeade så här sens i Marvel-filmer. Ska vi kolla om Slurp Truck finns kvar?
Ja. Jättegoda material.
I just be so lonely, 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 lonely. Jag blir så damn. Snälla, snipa mig inte.
AFK.
I just been so lonely, 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 lonely. Jag blir så... Oh, fiske. Kolla om Slurp Truck finns. Spicy.
Den är kvar.
Okej, vi drar till den, vi drar till den.
Ja, ja. Nu kan det vara.
Akta!
Nu chill.
Tur. Absolut inte att jag gjorde det med mening.
Nej.
Lite waste of mats.
Ja, ja.
Är du med mig? I'm fast. You get clapped. You got clapped. Du kan ta bazookan om du vill.
Ja. Vänta, jag snackar minis och mig.
Jag stackar chunks. Wash. Oh, big shield. Den kan jag stacka. I just been so lonely, lonely, lonely. Jag är så... Tack. Ska vi ta trucken?
Ja.
Jag ska bara kolla var vi kan sticka. Okej. Okej, den har ingen fuel. Vi tar den här istället. Den har lite. Oj.
Och jag tycker det är tjockt.
Fan, asbart att köra bil. I just been a lonely. Just get out of my way. Vänta. Så. Åh, fuck! Kommer dö. Kolla nu. En är uppe på mig. Kolla här. Kolla. Fuck. Åh, du skojar. Åh, du Fan. Ja. Ja, vi kör en till.
A little bit of lip service to how
Vi kör en till.
the size of atoms. They say that they're changing the spacing between the atoms and the space of the atoms. No. The size of an atom is determined via quantum mechanics to be the ratio of several fundamental constants. Charge of an electron, mass of an electron, Planck's constant. If, via the PIM field, to adjust, say, the magnitude of Planck's constant, make it 10 times smaller, then the atoms would become 100 times smaller, and the size of an object would shrink uniformly. If you make it 10 times bigger, the size of the atoms would be 100 times bigger, you could become Giant Man.
Okej. Okej, måste ha en skitbra taktik den här matchen. But I might be crispy like a white cheese and a spicy. Okej, vad har vi?
Oh yeah, I see that looking class a lot. So here, Peter Parker Spider-Man needs to stop a runaway elevated train. He shoots out multiple web lines. They stretch a great deal, but they don't break, and he's able to stop the train just in the nick of time. How strong does the webbing have to be for this to work? We can look up the mass of a train.
Vi drar 40. Dra 40.
Its initial velocity by seeing how long it takes to pass
40.
city blocks. We can look at the distance over which the webbing stretches. We can estimate its diameter. We can count the number of web lines, and we come up with a tensile strength for the webbing that has to be about 1,000 megapascals, which is equivalent to 145,000 pounds per square inch.
Solo drop här, boys.
Tensile strength of 1,200 megapascals. If Spider-Man's webbing is anywhere as strong as real spider silk, then this
Jag landar på den.
could happen. He's shooting it out of his wrists, which is not what a real spider would do, but we'll just leave that aside. Doctor Strange is a deviation from all the other Marvel movies, insofar as everything else in the Marvel Cinematic Universe up till then had some sort of hand-wavy super science type explanation. But here they're going for just full-on magic.
This doesn't make any sense.
Not everything does. Not everything has to.
The notion that there are multiple dimensions is an idea that has been taken seriously by at least some physicists.
What if I told you the reality you know is one of many?
Quantum mechanics is the branch of physics that describes the properties of atoms and how they interact with light. One aspect of quantum mechanics that many scientists find troubling is that it only deals with probabilities. So you can calculate the probability of a measurement giving the electron at a certain location in space and time, but not exactly where that electron will be. One alternative explanation is that there are actually an infinite number of parallel universes. You find the electron at one location, but in other universes, it might be at some different location. So presumably, maybe Doctor Strange is visiting some of these parallel Earths that have undergone significant quantum deviations from our own As far as the science there, even if they're in a parallel Earth, the fact that their antagonists are
Jag stackar Binks.
the orientation of gravity,
Eller vänta, kan någon av er stacka? Eller hallå Spence, ta 2 minis.
the master of the mystic.
Och så kan jag få mina shockwaves.
Ja. Hur många hade du?
Jag hade 2. Tack.
Yeah, no.
Det är någon som vill ha sån här...
You want me to put the hammer down?
Följ efter mig, följ efter mig.
Köp
Kom,
iPhone
följ
SE
efter mig.
med 15 GB
Följ efter mig.
hos 3.
In här.
Okej, tack.
Varsågod.
Thor puts the hammer down on Captain America's shield. In the movies, the shield is made of pure vibranium, where in the comics, it's an alloy of steel and vibranium. That's actually more realistic. You want steel to provide strength and rigidity, so that when Captain America
Ska vi dra dit?
it will ricochet. But you want the vibranium because it absorbs all
Kan vi få
vibration,
Mythic?
making it the perfect shock absorber as it's absorbing Thor's hammer blow in this scene.
Vibration.
Tänk vad jobbigt. Alltså,
Energy can't be destroyed, it can only be converted to another form. The energy of the hammer strike
Kolla, jag ska
is
snipa den
converted
borta.
into sound waves
Headshot.
in the hammer.
Easy
And
claps.
if the
Jag kan snipa dem
vibranium
härifrån.
absorbs it, what form does it take? What we see from the clip. It's converted into blue light, ultraviolet light, this enormous
Knocka
flash
2.
that's given off. It's showing that vibranium is actually a perfect sonoluminescent material. Sono meaning sound.
Det är bara en robot kvar.
You send sound waves in and you get light out. This is a real phenomenon in physics. The only real difference is that vibranium unfortunately doesn't exist.
Och det finns en till.
vi hackar dem.
Det finns en kvar. Hacka. Nej, hacka inte. Skit i och hacka.
Molecules in your brains. Did you guys just put the word quantum in front of everything?
This is a classic
Jag tror alla är döda nu.
of quantum
Ni vill kan ni hacka.
jumbo. There are some real words and real concepts.
Jag stackar inte, tyvärr inte. Någon annan kan stacka.
Or
Jag stackar minis.
phrases that I just cannot follow. But quantum entanglement is
Okej, tack.
if you bring two objects so close together
Jag hackar en. Vi hackar en.
quantum wave functions overlap, then they can only be described as a single two-object quantum wave function.
Men vänta, var hamnar loot dropsen?
Apart, and I don't disentangle them, then they remain connected. So something that's done on
Nej, alltså de man skjuter ner från
the
himlen.
other end, even though they could be on opposite ends
Okay.
of the Earth or opposite ends of the solar system, they would still be communicating to each other because they're still described by
Följ efter mig.
one single wave function. Scientists are using this property
Följ efter mig.
to try
Stå
to
till still, stå inte still, det är från sniper.
superior computers. They're trying to make the context for a character in the movie Ghost, who is quantum mechanically tunneling through solid objects. A real phenomena, but the way they're doing it just doesn't really make sense. A little bit too much quantum woo. So I say less woo, more quantum.
Borta carrier mig.
Vänta, människa.
Var? Det är ett helt team. Docka! Det är Toppe! Dr. Doom är Toppe!
And his sister, scientific genius Shuri, she's using a holographically generated car
Dr. Doom är Toppe! Knocked!
to steer a car Black Panther has commandeered in South Korea.
Död?
What makes Wakanda special is that it's near inexhaustible supply of vibranium, an extraterrestrial mineral that has the ability to absorb all vibrations. The hard light hologram always
Han är ett alltså.
Holograms are interference patterns created with light. The hologram itself is not an actual object, it is an image. But I thought about it some more, using sound
Alltså! Fan!
force as if they were a solid object. And presumably, if you overlay that with a optical hologram, you would have something that feels solid, but is generated via light. Presumably, using their command of vibranium, Shuri is able to do this and overlay it with an optical hologram, which has no solidity, but still produces a visual image for her to interact with. I don't know if I could create a interference sound pattern overlaid with a hologram to create a hard light object, but Shuri, someone can.
Trifax.
Surprising absolutely no one, here we see Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, showing up in Avengers Endgame, obviously responding to the SOS call sent out by Nick Fury at the end of Avengers Infinity War. We last saw her in the mid-1990s at the end of her own movie, Captain Marvel, where she took off into outer space to try to find the Skrulls' homeworld. She comes back to Earth 24, 25 years later, doesn't appear to be any older. Einstein's special theory of relativity says that all observers, whether stationary or moving, have to agree on the value of the speed of light. For that to be the case, they will disagree about distances and disagree about times. There's an effect called time dilation, that if someone is moving very close to the speed of light, to a stationary observer, time will appear to have been moving slower. Say she spends 6 months traveling close to, but not at the speed of light, then 6 months traveling at this velocity would correspond to 24 years passing on Earth. We don't know what's going to happen in Captain Marvel 2, but if any of it involves traveling near the speed of light, then the time dilation effect could easily account for the fact that she doesn't appear to have aged significantly from the last movie. This has been Jim Kikalius, your friendly neighborhood physics professor, and in the words of the legendary Stan Lee, face front, true believer.
What's the matter with you kids? You never seen a spaceship before? Bring them over here and hold on to safekeeping. That is hilarious.
Prova Ipaflex för att lindra smärta i rygg, muskler och leder. En kapsel ger upp till 12 timmars smärtlindring.
Mercedes, how can I help you?
Visste det.
Grills, and today we're going to look at some of the top survival movies and figure out just how realistic they are to the dead camel. Really? And him getting inside that got him out of the cold, got him out of the wind, and saved his life. So doing the unimaginable, doing the difficult, the number one priority, protection. Good for Leo.
Hey everyone, it's Forrest Galante here from Animal Planet's Extinct or Alive. I'm a wildlife biologist and you're watching The Breakdown.
True albino pigeon. Some rich guy lost it. He's offering a $25,000 reward.
So I'm going to pause it right there. It's pretty funny just off the start. If you're somebody who lives in a city anywhere, you know that there's nothing that uncommon about seeing a white pigeon. You know, you see them every day. So just the fact that in this clip, Ace Ventura is looking for a rare albino pigeon that's worth 25 grand is absolutely hilarious. So it's a good start. Pause it right there. It's just so much fun. You know, the whole idea that Ace Ventura can wiggle the keys and all of the animals in his house that, you know, he's rescued or he lives among will all go and hide into various spots. It's ridiculous. That's not how it works. It's not how animals work. It doesn't matter if you're the best trained creatures in the world. Maybe you could get the odd dog to do it. But to get, you know, this cacophony of creatures that all live in this tiny one-bedroom apartment to all go and hide, it's absurd, it's hilarious, it's not realistic at all, and it's a ton of fun. As Ace Ventura blows the whistle, the first thing you see is the beagle coming running out, the dog. There's a toucan in the frame. There's a whole bunch of South American parrots, which is hilarious. Of course, these are common, you know, birds in the pet trade, but you certainly wouldn't want to have that many of them living in a small apartment. Now, my favorite part of the opening of this scene is the otter coming out of the toilet. It's an Asian small-clawed otter. They're absolutely hilarious, super inquisitive. Of everything and how unrealistic these clips are, the most realistic part of this is probably an Asian small-clawed otter hiding and playing in a toilet. Because they're just so mischievous, they're so playful, they're so much fun. They would absolutely hide in the toilet and pop out like that. I love that clip. It's super cute. Now, this is a trained animal, and each one of these animals that you're seeing are indeed trained animals. So it's amazing that they're capable of doing this on command for the camera, but it doesn't mean that they all did it, you know, in simultaneity when the whistle was blown. It doesn't work that way. You can be sure that when they were setting this up, they probably spent a day getting the skunk to pop out of the laundry, and another day getting all the birds to fly in, and another day getting the Asian small-clawed otter to pop out of the toilet. So it's beautifully done. It's really clever filmmaking, but it's not the way that animals work. The notion that this many creatures of this diverse of species could all live in a single one-bedroom apartment is pretty ridiculous. That being said, animals are incredible and they're adaptive and they're very, very trainable and they're very understanding. Like, could you have otters and parrots and puppies and skunks all living together? Absolutely. There's no big predators in that group, so they could all live in harmony, but they couldn't all live in harmony in a one-bedroom apartment. There's just not enough space for the amount of animals you've seen. So Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, absolutely awesome movie. Everyone should watch it. It's tons of fun and it makes you love animals. But ridiculous to think that that many creatures could all be crammed happily into a one-bedroom apartment.
Nu kan du skaffa iPhone SE hos 3 och samtidigt lägga till kompisen, mormor, dejten eller syrran i ditt abonnemang för 99 kronor i månaden per extra användare. Välkommen till 3.
Next up, Anaconda. Now, if you're working with anacondas, they don't have that build. You know, they don't have that kind of flexibility that you're seeing. What you're seeing in this frame here is this animal has maybe the back 1/8 of its body up in that whatever building structure is, and the rest of it is holding up with its body weight. That's unrealistic. Those animals are not capable of doing that. All they can do is hold about 1/3 of their body up and off the ground at a time, the front third. And so seeing as maybe that's, you know, 6 or 7/8 of its body being held up, it's unrealistic. It's too skinny and it's too long. That's not the way anacondas look. there for a second. So there's two species of anaconda. There's green anacondas and there's yellow anacondas. Now, what I'm seeing here is neither really. It's a red anaconda? I don't know. You know, I can see what they're going for. They're trying to make this look like the green anaconda, but it's got too much red. It's too dark. You know, maybe if the snake were about to shed and it was really, really old, it would have that dark a coloration, but really it looks too dark and the eyes look too humanoid. That's not a reptilian eye. And you can see why they've done that. As human beings, as bipedal creatures, when we look at another animal, we connect to them through, you know, eyesight, through ocular vision. And so when you see bigger, meaner looking eyes like what they put on this snake, it's instantly scarier than when you see the actual snake's eyes, which are far more kind of peaceful looking than this animal's. I'll hold it there for a second. So as you see, the snake wraps up with the back third of its body to coil its victim. Now, there's two pieces to this. The one part that's accurate is anacondas aren't constrictors. They will absolutely wrap their prey, asphyxiate it by crushing the rib cage, and then consume it. But they will never, ever lead with their tail. They do not have the ability to do that. When a constrictor snake attacks its prey, it leads with its head, latches onto something, and then uses that grip with its mouth to then wrap around its prey or victim. So the notion that it can just kind of use its tail like Indiana Jones' whip and wrap around and then continue to do something else with its head is, well, just silly. Hold there for a second. Now what you're hearing is an anaconda screaming. Now that's a real piece of movie magic for you right there, ladies and gentlemen, because there's no such thing. You know, I've caught hundreds of anacondas, I really have, and none of them have ever gone "Arr!" and growled or screamed at me. They just don't do that. The most noise that animal is capable of making is releasing air from its body to let out the hissing sound that we're familiar with in snakes, which is like a bit of a sound. But this whole notion that it growls and grunts as it's fighting with this guy, it's just complete add-in audio. Hold there for a second. So now what you see is the snake's trapped in this net, right? But it's still got its two victims within its coil. Now you're really anthropomorphizing the animal here, and what I mean by that is this thing's out for vengeance, right? It's not even there to eat its prey, the two people. It's there just to kill them. That's why it won't even let them go in a net. Well, if you've ever caught any kind of wild animal, you know the second that it's under stress, it doesn't want to continue to try and feed, it doesn't want to continue to try and attack, it wants to get away. These are all things very far from real life, but if this situation were to happen in real life where you were being constricted by an anaconda and it hadn't latched onto you with its teeth and you were trapped in a net, the second that something dramatic like gunfire and nets were coming up and around it, it would release everything in its power to get away. Hold there. Now, the speed is really, really interesting. So, the reason that anacondas get so big is because they live a long time. Anacondas, like many reptiles, grow until the day they die, right? As you get bigger and bigger, it makes it harder and harder to move. It takes more energy expenditure. So the largest anacondas that I've ever caught, the 21 plus footers, are so big and so heavy that out of water, they can barely slither. I mean, it's like you can see the amount of effort going into every motion. And here we have our 60-foot long anaconda. Of course, it's 3 times the size of anything in reality, but it's moving at this lightning speed. First of all, the bite's bad. A bite from a big snake sucks. They have a recurved tooth system like this, and when it goes down, they interlock, and then you're stuck within those teeth. So you really don't want to end up with a bite from a big boa or a big python like an anaconda. That being said, the bite's not the part that'll do damage. Sure, you're going to take these 3-inch long recurved needles into your body, but it's the coiling and the asphyxiation that creates a problem. You can get an anaconda to release from you, or any snake for that matter, by wedging something in its mouth and prying it open. If you're attacked by a big snake like this, or a realistic one, you gotta get your buddies, which I've had do to me a couple times, run around uncoiling the thing as it's trying to wrap you up, because that's the dangerous part. If the snake feels like it's being attacked, it's not going to continue to try and consume you. The only reason a big snake is holding on to you is because it's trying to eat you. Otherwise, it's a defensive bite. It's a strike, bite, and release on their own. So if you're in the situation where they're already coiling up, it's because you're restraining it and it's trying to do some damage, or because it's trying to eat. Of everything I've seen, the most realistic kind of bite and coil, you see the snake there lunges forward, he grabs the guy by the shoulder, pulls him back into his own body, and starts to wrap around him. That's actually how the snakes do behave. Very different to what you saw earlier, where it used the back half of its body like a whip just to wrap around. That's complete nonsense. This is at least anatomically somewhat correct. Hold there for a second. This is actually pretty good. The teeth aren't bad. They're relatively anatomically correct. What I was talking about earlier, they're backwards facing. There's a lot of them, which is right. Now these snakes can open their mouths up wider than the width of their body, which you're seeing them get ready to do here to consume the guy. It's actually not bad. Whoever scripted this probably had actually seen a snake eat something before. I've never been inside a snake, so I don't know how real that is. So when a constrictor consumes its food, it's almost always completely dead. In this case, the guy's feet are literally wiggling as he goes down the snake's throat. So, no animal would do that at risk of injury to themselves, because if they're going to consume something that's clawing and scratching on the way down, it's going to do damage to vital internal organs. So, again, we're back to a little bit of Hollywood magic, but at least it's somewhat anatomically correct. They do feed from the head down, not from the legs up, so that part's right. He would go down head first. There would be that kind of bit of gulping that you're seeing the snake do. That part's all accurate, but the reality is the prey would already be killed by asphyxiation before the snake. And then as you see, as the prey goes down, in this case the guy, its body's actually expanding to the size of the meal, and that's accurate as well. Snakes will do that. If you feed a snake something, it can eat something larger than its own head because its jaw can stretch so much, and their skin is stretchy enough that they can actually consume things bigger than you see that big lump in them as it goes down. So in this case, what would typically happen is a big snake eats a big meal like that, it's going to get pretty lethargic. It's going to settle down. It actually can't have that meal disrupted too much. If it does, it'll want to regurgitate it because there's so much whole food in there. It slowly has to kind of let the muscles work the prey down, get to the stomach acids, that's kind of nice. But it's not too far-fetched. If a snake were to eat the way that it does... Up the Revenant. Bears scare me, man. I'll tell you, I've worked with a lot of wildlife, and bears they're tough. And what you see here, the idea that Leonardo DiCaprio is hunting and he's kind of dropped his guard and all of a sudden the ferns start moving and this animal charges, totally realistic. Now the bear looks a little CG, but the behavior, totally realistic. You could be out in the woods, especially up in the far north, you're out hunting, the bear's onto you. It could be in the springtime when they're trying to store up fat, so they're willing to risk their own bodies in order to hunt a large meal like a human being or a caribou or something like that. And this whole idea of it hunting you, charging out of the bush, totally realistic. Hold there for a sec. Now the way he's mauling Leonardo DiCaprio, again, seems pretty realistic to me. He's on top of him, he's overpowering him. Now bears are highly intelligent and they know if they're making a kill, that's the way to do that. So again, it looks pretty real. He's digging in with his claws, he's doing a lot of damage in as efficient a manner as possible without letting any damage be inflicted on himself. So that is the way a bear would attack. I mean, this is a CG bear, but it's obviously supposed to be a grizzly or a brown bear. Black bears are much smaller. They wouldn't behave in this manner. They're far more timid. This is clearly supposed to be a grizzly bear. As opposed to CG sounds like in some of the other clips, these are actual bear sounds that have been put in. Now, they may have been kind of stretched and but these are real bear noises. So if a bear is attacking like that, it's going to cut very, very deeply. Not just because of the sharpness of the teeth and the sharpness of the claws, but rather the jaw pressure and the immense amount of strength that that animal is putting into it. The teeth and claws, they're sharp, but they're no sharper than like your puppy dogs at home. It's just they have so much strength behind those teeth and claws that that amount of damage is, they're gouging really, really deep. Now this part I kind of don't understand, and what I mean by that is the bear's just standing over him. Now, not to say that that couldn't happen, because it could. A bear could be tired from making the kill, tired from the...
Ja, vad är det? Ja, men den är inte 9.
Men det avslutar 9.
Ja. Stäng dörren.
admiring its presence. If it comes in, you can keep him by his presence, and the bear's weak. He does, as anyone naturally would. He has a firearm and he fires, and so that, of course, inflicts injury upon the bear and provokes an ongoing attack. So overall, in The Revenant, I would say at CG from Netflix. This is incredible. It's true. He's doing the absolute wrong thing here. He's low to the ground. He's making eye contact with the animal, and then he's backing up. Like, you couldn't do anything worse. If you're threatened by a canine in a one-on-one standoff situation like that, attack, say leave attack and advance that combat. So here we see Liam Neeson, he's in the den, right? And we're establishing that, and by that is a usual intruder. One animal that's going from at a chemical.
Sånt lyfter smaken på varje gryta. Troppa i och smaka av. Boom, touch of taste. Smaksättaren.
That's how wolves do hunt. Gray wolves come in a variety of colors, from basically pure white to pure black, and these gray and brown and tan colors that you see in between. In our minds, black wolves, like Black Panthers, are scarier and more evil, and that's why in Hollywood, they're the leaders, and they're the biggest, and they're the meanest. That's absolutely not the case in nature. So here you hear the animals howling as the kid's stuck in the tree. It's not unrealistic because wolves howl to communicate and signal to other packs and other animals where they are. But if they've got prey cornered in a tree, they probably don't need to howl to call others over. So it's kind of pretty and it's nice. I don't necessarily know that it's what would be happening. So a second ago you saw the wolves howling while the boy was in the tree, and then the very next scene the wolves are all gone. So that actually makes sense, right? So the wolves cornered this kid in the tree. They go, we can't get him. He's up there. We're stuck down here. Let me call and see where the rest of the family is, where the rest of the pack is. They howl. They hear in the distance, the pack's 3 clicks to the left. I'm going that way, and they all take off. But the one animal that's left domesticated, he doesn't want to just murder the wolf. He knows that the wolf's an animal. It's a predator. It was trying to eat him, but now it's injured. It can't eat him, and they're leaving each other alone. I think in this situation, the wolf would be far more terrified and aggressive. I can understand it's very injured and it's probably dehydrated, so it probably doesn't have a lot of energy to be aggressive, but I think it would be growling and snarling if someone were to approach it. Keep in mind, this is an animal, of course this is dated very long time ago. This is an animal that's likely never even seen a human being before. Alright, he beats up the wolf, really nice, so now we're going to fast forward a bit. So now they're buddies, right? He's swimming, he's playing with the wolf. Now, it's fun and it's enjoyable to watch, but wolves are not pets. They're just not wired that way. I've worked with a lot of wolves, even domesticated wolves. At no point could you be picking up and throwing a wolf around. They still have wolf behavior, they still have pack mentality, and that would be you trying to dominate an animal that otherwise wants to be dominated. Here you see the wolf is dominant. He's far more capable of hunting wild boar than it is. I love that. I love that scene. It's grounded in historical scientific theory, which is that wolves follow human beings, humans slowly domesticated wolves over generations, and then they work together to hunt and feed. Here we've seen it all in the span of an hour in a movie, and really it probably took many, many generations, but it's great to see the idea, the human and animal working together to benefit each other, and that's why dogs are man's closest friend. Love that. Absolutely love that. Pause that there. So here you see, right, the pack's returned. The wolf that's been with the boy, they've established a bond, and when the pack, the alpha from prior, the big black bad wolf, comes in to make the attack, he sees that the other wolf has become friends with the boy, so to speak, and the body language cues allow that other wolf to relax. I don't know that it would be that instantaneous as you see it here, but the idea that these animals are intelligent enough to say, hey, this is my pack, that's your pack, let's not fight, is very great, and it's true, because animals...
Jag plockade den innan nu.
Jag vet.
Avslutar du?
Ja.
Ja. Jag ska bara göra kaninen imorgon.
Let's go get clapped, man. It was so bad, bro. So. Potato taste. Vad fan? Bruh. Den ultimate bullshit moment. Trappa i snackar upp på touch of taste. Olika frågor då. På touch of. Trappa i snackar upp på touch of taste. Olika frågor då. På touch of.